We are giving away all of these 16 prizes here to celebrate the World Championship, including a signed photo from Raymond van Barneveld and Phil Taylor, which includes a match used art. Just head over to our Twitter, link in the description, to see our pinned tweet for full details, and don't forget to comment and subscribe. Simon Adams, the 56-year-old African qualifier, making his debut at the PDC World Championship. And for anybody who's not seen Simon Adams play, he's quite an eccentric player. Every time he wins a leg, he looks at his hands, and I don't know whether he's saying a little prayer. I'm not sure what he's doing, but he's a fun guy to watch, and he's a really genuine, wholehearted, nice guy. He's facing Ricky Evans in that fourth quarter in the opening round. And Ricky got a lot of experience, but he could have a game on his hands here. He's been playing Simon Adams in the recent Super Series, Motor Super Series, and he's produced a couple of poor performances, one average in the 60s, another average in the 70s. But he's also produced multiple averages in the 90s, including one average of 107 plus. So if he can replicate somewhere sort of mid-90s, even low 90s, then he really can challenge Ricky Evans. But you expect rapid Ricky Evans to come through because of his experience, but we've seen the quality in recent weeks that Simon Adams can produce. Whoever comes through that game will face Nathan Aspinall, the number 6 seed, in the second round.
Well, a big well done to anyone who predicted that Owen Bates was going to be the most talked about player coming into this year's PDC World Championship a few months ago. But his nickname of the Master, rather rude play on his last name, has captured the imagination of newspapers and media outlets around the world who've reported on the fact that the PDC won't let him don that nickname on his shirt for Ali Pali. So he's going nicknameless to Ali Pali. But let's just focus on his game because he's a fantastic young player as well. Only 20 years old. Finished second on the Challenge Tour Order of Merit, which has won him a 2-year tour card and his spot here at Alexandra Palace. But he only did it on the very last day. There was a 5-way go for second, and he managed to sneak in there, avoiding a few match starts from James Harrell to leapfrog John Henderson into second spot. So it's a great opportunity for him, and he might just fancy his chances here because he plays Steve Lennon in round one. The Irishman is under immense pressure to keep his tour card. He probably needs one win here. So there's going to be huge pressure on Lennon, who'll be a narrow favourite, but Bates definitely has the game to trouble him. And it's a little bit of a free hit for him. So I do quite like his chances of getting through his opener. There he would probably play, well, he would play Johnny Clayton in round two. And the Ferret has had an up and down year. So who's to say that Bates can't go and cause an upset there as well? He's definitely a player to keep an eye on. I don't think he's going to be getting into the latter stages of this tournament, but as his nickname suggests, the best is still to come.
American Stowe Bunce made his professional darts TV debut at the Grand Slam just last month. His first ever game, he beat former two-time world champion Peter Wright 5-1, averaging 102 in the process. Not a bad start. His second game, he beat world number 18, Stephen Bunting. He then beat Andrew Gilding in the knockout stage before coming up short in a longer format game in a Bunting rematch. Bunce qualified for the World Championship for the first time through a second place position in the PDC North America Tour, and the 44-year-old has got a tricky but opportunistic type draw. He's got Kevin Duets in round one, the Dutchman, in what is a coin toss type of game with the bookies. Either man could win that on their day, but the opportunity for the winner is pretty huge. A match with the reigning world champion on the opening night of Ali Pali against a bang out of form Michael Smith. Opportunity knocks for the colourful Bunce on debut.
It's a big year for everybody named David Cameron, as one of them makes his shock return to Rishi Sunak's cabinet and the other one makes his return to Alexandra Palace. That one far less of a shock. We know the quality David Cameron has got. Qualifies through the CDC Pro Tour, and he made his debut last year at the World Championship, losing 3-1 to Danny Noppert. He's also a champion in the World Seniors, beating Phil Taylor last year in the World Seniors Darts Masters and in the World Seniors Champions event, and made the semi-final this year. He's not going to be fazed by the big stage. He's won titles on the big stage and the TV cameras, so that's not going to affect him, and he will play Jamie Hughes in the first round in that first quarter, and if he can overcome Jamie Hughes, then the Canadian will face Paul Christoph Ratajski.
Japanese player Tomoya Goto will make his Ali Pali debut after becoming one of 3 Asian Tour players to qualify on the same day alongside Filipino pair Paulo Nebrida and Reynaldo Rivera. It's often tricky to get a read of how these Asian players will take to the World Championship stage, particularly on debut, given the liveliness of the crowd and huge amounts of travelling involved for them to get there. However, there have been some memorable efforts in years gone by, and a victory is never out of the question. Goto's averages en route to qualifying suggest he's capable of adding his name to that illustrious roll of honour. The 27-year-old posted several efforts in the high 90s and even crept over a ton on a couple of occasions during the latest batch of Asian Tour events. He should take confidence from his draw too. He's facing Ian White, who is definitely not the force of all by a long stretch. Diamond obviously has a huge advantage in terms of experience, but what appears to be a kind draw at first glance could easily turn into a difficult afternoon at the office for the PDC veteran.
Jeffrey de Graaf comes to the 2024 World Championship via the Nordic and Baltic qualifying route. The Dutch-born Swedish resident has been here twice before, going out in the opening round on both occasions. That was in 2017 and 2019. A former PDC Tour card holder and plenty of experience in the BDO as a youngster, is certainly capable and could beat Richie Edhouse in the opening round on a going day. Although odds to win that game against Edhouse of 11-5 make him a significant underdog. The reward for the winner of that game is an out-of-form Jose de Souza in round 2. And for those interested, Jeffrey de Graaf is 2,000-1 to lift the title.
It's a big World Championship coming up for the former handball player Florian Hempel. 2 years ago at the 2022 PDC World Championship, he made the third round, losing to Raymond Smith. So he is defending the third place money from that tournament, which means provisionally he is currently outside of the top 64 post-World Championship. So he's got a lot to do if he is to retain his tour card for the 2024 season. He's currently sitting 67th in that order of merit. So it's about 6,000 outside of the top 64. So if he could win a game, it could just very well be enough for the German. He does face young Irishman Dylan Slevin in the first round. And between them, I think you could toss a coin. It's a really, really close game between those two. Whoever comes through that will be facing Dimitri Vandenberg. He also played at last year's World Championship, losing in the second round in a close game 3-2 to Luke Humphrey. So he has got pedigree on this stage, and he would have hoped to do a little bit more this year, but he has qualified for 6 European Tour events, which is some feat. So not been the worst year in the world, but yeah, he's got work to do if he's to secure his card for the 2024 season.
Dragutin Horvat will make his second appearance at Ali Pali this year after winning a second German Super League title last month. The 47-year-old did so in impressive fashion too, beating some familiar countrymen in the form of Nico Kurz, Lucas Werning and Pascal Ruprecht. An average of around 91 for the day shows the German to be no mug at this year's World Championship. Horvat does not currently have a tour card, but we did see him qualify for the German Darts Grand Prix back in April on the Euro Tour as a homeland qualifier. He then went and beat Scott Waite 6-4 before losing to Dave Chisnell via the same scoreline, but it was a credible showing. On his World's debut, he actually edged out Russia's Boris Koltsov in his opener before losing 3-0 to Simon Whitlock, so he'll hope to at least match that effort 7 years on. He's quite a big underdog against established Belgian youngster Mike de Decker, but with the real deal having endured some patchy form in recent times, he's not without a chance of causing a shock.
This is the 6th year in a row Lawrence Ilagan has qualified for the World Championship. 7 previous visits yielded 6 straight losses in the first round before he finally broke his Ali Pali duck last year with a win against the odds against Rauby John Rodriguez in a nail-biting final leg victory. At 45, the man they call the Gunner is a mainstay on the Asian dart scene, both soft tip and steel tip, and a regular in the Filipino PDC World Cup team. Ilagan faces Canadian Matt Campbell in round 1, for which he is 13-8 to win that game, and James Wade awaits the winner of that one in round 2.
Marco Cantelli, the PDC Nordic and Baltic qualifier, is a player with a lot of stage experience in the PDC. He's played in 11 World Cup of Darts events, and this is also his 5th World Championship. He has been absent from the past 2 World Championships, but he'll be relishing making his return to the Alexandra Palace stage. He's also played a few Euro Tour events this year as well. He's not won a game, but he has played in 4 events on the stage in Europe. So I don't think he'll be fazed by the lights, the cameras, the crowd. He's been in front of them enough. He's also played a lot of darts in the UK this year on the Modus Super Series, which would have given him some much needed match practice over here. He is in that stacked second quarter, and he will face Radak Zagansky in the opening game, who has won a title this year himself, so that'll be a difficult tie. Marco Alcantara will probably kick off the underdog there, but we know the quality he can produce. It's just whether he can from ease. He can be a bit erratic, a lot of stray darts, but if he finds it, he can be a dangerous player. And if he does come through that tie, then a tie against Raymond van Barneveld will await him.
The lesser-known Pole on the PDC circuit, Christoph Chuk may not have the pedigree of his namesake Ratajski, but is not to be underestimated nevertheless. The first from his nation to appear at the World Championship, Chuk will make his second appearance at Dart's biggest tournament 14 years on from his debut. He's currently ranked 83 in the world, so only a run to the quarterfinals would save Chuk a trip to Q School in January, but he can still take some positives from 2023. Alongside Ratajski, he set the world record average for a pairs game when posting over 118 against Lithuania at the World Cup of Darts. While earlier on in the year, he enjoyed a run to the quarterfinals of Player Championship 4, beating the likes of Nathan Aspinall, Ross Smith, Martin Schindler, and Darryl Gurney. Like many of those around him in the rankings, Chuk just struggles for consistency, and his game against exciting youngster Connor Scott will very much be a case of who turns up on the day. However, if he does progress, it'd be hard to fancy Chuk for a round 2 upset against the imperious Gerwyn Price.
Boris Kirchmer, one of my personal favourites. Just look at him. If there was a dot in Royal Rumble, Boris Kirchmer would be favourite for sure. Massive in structure and mean looking. And his darts aren't bad either. The Croatian has been a PDC Tour card holder since 2020. He's currently ranked 61 and pops up now and again in the TV tournaments. He's actually in a bit of danger of losing that Tour card if he drops out of the top 64, and he had to rely on the final day of qualification to get into this year's World Championships. He's got Keegan Brown in the first round, and a win there would help him secure his professional status for next year, a game which he is slight favourite to win at 4-5. The good news for Boris, and indeed Brown, is that the winner of their game in round 1 will face Dirk van Dijvenbode in round 2, and we all know that Dirk is struggling badly with an injured throwing hand at the moment. A potential trip to round 3 would be much welcome for both. Boris is 125-1 just to win quarter 2, a price that would of course be much shorter if he can get past Brown and Dirk, and he could.
Man Lok Lung is a player that you've probably not heard too much about. He's a young player, 24 years old, from Hong Kong, and he has played on the TV before, playing against Luke Humphries at the start of the year at the Bahrain Darts Masters, losing 6-3 in the round of 16. But he has averaged 91 on the television. He's also averaged in excess of 100 in the PDC Asia Tour, which is how he qualified for the World Championship. It's his debut in this particular tournament, and it'll be interesting to see how he copes with coming all the way to the UK, playing on that Ali Pali stage in a big crowd and a big atmosphere. He's in that fourth quarter playing Jan van Veen, who we know what Jan's done this year. It's been an incredible year. He's a great player, but he's not been in the best of form lately as Jan. He's lost the World Youth Final, albeit 102 average from Luke Littler, and he lost all 3 games at the Grand Slam of Darts. So if he can step up to the occasion and produce what he can do and what he has shown us on the Asian Tour, then he could cause Jan van Veen some issues. And if he can come through that tie, then he sets up a second round clash with last year's semi-finalist Gabriel Clemens.
Well, if you've had your ear to the ground in the world of darts, then Luke Littler won't be a new name to you. This young man has been making waves since hitting 9 darters on JDC events and generally ripping things up despite being a secondary school child. Well, he's only 16 now. I know he looks a little bit older, but what he's done in the last year has been nothing short of remarkable. He's earned himself a tour card for next year based on his performances on the development tour, where he finished second in the order of merit, only to Jan van Veen, but he got the sweetest of revenge on his Dutch counterpart when winning the World Youth Championship final last month, 6-4 in Minehead. It was a cracking game. Both players playing some fantastic stuff, high checkouts, 180s galore, and it was a glimpse into the future of darts. The likes of Gary Anderson have said that Littler is destined for the top, and he certainly has all the tools in his locker. He's a really confident young man, fears nothing, and he has the game to back it up. However, I would just temper a word of warning here. He played in the WDF World Championship in 2022, exited in the third round to Richard Veenstra 3-0. Now, I think all that message is to just rein in expectations of him coming and winning the World Championship. I mean, we saw Josh Rock come in last year as the young hype horse, if you will, and he did exceptionally well to reach the last 16 before Johnny Clayton's experience over the longer format eventually did for him. Now, Rock had actually had a full year of playing on the senior tour behind him at that point. So it's wrong to expect Littler to rock up here and get into quarterfinal, semi-final regions. However, he could certainly do some damage in the early rounds, and Christian Kiss must have been cursing his luck when he pulled him in the first round draw. One thing is for sure, it's going to be extremely exciting to see how Littler fares on his Ali Pali debut. There's definitely many, many more years to come.
There's 32 games in round one of the 2024 World Darts Championship, and no one has a harder task than Norman Madu. He's a whopping 25-1 to win just his first round game, the biggest price you'll see for any single player to win in round one. Jim Williams is his opponent, so the odds suggest he's got virtually no chance. 59-year-old South American qualifier Madu has been to the Worlds on 3 previous occasions, way back in 2004, then again in 2010 and 2011. He's yet to win a game, averaging 74, 76 and 82 respectively. He has done well to qualify though, to be fair, as last year there wasn't a South American participant at all. So here's hoping that Madu's arrival at Ali Pali can do wonders for the darts participation in Guyana.
Haruki Muramatsu qualified for the World Championship through the PDC Asian Championship and is a player with a lot of PDC experience. He is a former tour card holder. He has played in Players' Championship events in the past. And he also played in the most recent edition of the Grand Slam of Darts only a few weeks ago. So even though he went out in the group stages, it's still 3 games on the big stage. So a good preparation there for the World Championship. He lost to Brendan Dolan, Andrew Gilden and Danny Noppert. He is in that third quarter and he will face Scott Williams in his opening match. And if he can come through Scott Williams, then he will set up a rematch from the Grand Slam of Darts against Danny Noppert. He has played on the Alexandra Palace stage before. This will be his 5th tournament at the PDC World Championship, so he's yet to win a game. But we know the quality he's got. We have seen that in spells, but not consistently. So if he can just find a bit of form, then he could pick up his first PDC World Championship victory at Alexandra Palace.